Today is July 28th. It's the 210th day of the year, and this is the On This Day podcast. On this day in 1866, sculptor Vinnie Ream receives a commission to sculpt a statue of the late President Abraham Lincoln. Vinnie Ream is 18 years old, the first woman and youngest artist to receive such a commission from the U.S. government. Lavinia Ream is born in Madison, Wisconsin in 1847. Her family moves to Washington, D.C. in 1861. Soon after moving, her father becomes ill, and Vinnie goes to work to help support her family. She is 14 when she gets a job as a clerk in the dead letter office of the U.S. Postal Service. She's one of the first female employees hired by the federal government. Ream meets sculptor Clark Mills in 1863. In the following year, he takes her on as an apprentice in his studio when she is 17. Recognizing her natural artistic ability, Mills gives her a crash course in sculpture, assigning her the job of making busts of congressmen and other luminaries of the 1860s, Generals Grant, McClellan, and Fremont, and composer Franz Liszt. In 1864, some of her prominent bust models encourage President Lincoln to model for her. He's not interested, until he learns that Ream comes from that same Midwestern wilderness as he hails from, and he finds a kindred spirit in this 5-foot, 90-pound, 17-year-old girl. So he agrees to sit for her for half an hour every morning for 5 months. Not too long after she completes her bust of Lincoln, he is assassinated in April 1865. Ream is devastated. In 1866, Congress solicits submissions for a statue of the fallen president to be displayed in the Capitol building. Ream submits her bust of Lincoln as her entry for consideration. Though the decision is not without controversy, Congress awards 18-year-old Vinnie Ream the commission to sculpt a life-size statue of the president. Working in the basement of the Capitol building, Ream creates a plaster model of her subject. She measures Lincoln's own clothes to create as accurate a life-size replica of him as possible, using the same clothing he wore the night he was shot at Ford's Theater. Once the plaster model is finished, she and her family travel to Italy, where she spends 2 years turning the model into a finished marble sculpture, using Carrara marble, only the purest marble for the worthy man. The completed statue is unveiled in the Capitol Rotunda in 1871, President Lincoln holding a copy of the Emancipation Proclamation in his right hand, extending it out as if handing it off to you as he looks down to meet your eyes. And the statue is still there. Next time you're in D.C., go see the statue of Lincoln, sculpted by Vinnie Ream, the first woman and youngest artist to receive a federal government commission on this day in 1866. Ream later sculpts the statue of the Native American sequoia, a gift for the U.S. Capitol's Statuary Hall by the state of Oklahoma. And she sculpts the sculpture of Admiral David Farragut, located in Farragut Square in Washington, D.C. And the city of Vinita, Oklahoma, is named in honor of Vinnie Ream. On this day in 1945, a U.S. Army B-25 Mitchell bomber gets lost in a thick fog while flying over Manhattan and crashes into the 79th floor of the Empire State Building. The B-25 is on a routine mission this day, flying from Bedford Army Airfield in Massachusetts to Newark Airport in New Jersey. When the plane arrives in the sky over New York, there is zero visibility. The pilot is in contact with the tower at LaGuardia. They ask him to land there rather than heading further through the fog. But Lieutenant Colonel William Smith, decides to press on to Newark. LaGuardia Tower tells him, quote, "At the present time, I can't see the top of the Empire State Building." Smith thanks LaGuardia. Minutes later, as the B-25 crosses Manhattan, around 9:50 in the morning, a building suddenly comes into view in the windshield. It is the top of the Empire State Building. Smith attempts to climb, but it's too late. The plane slams into the 78th and 79th floors of what is at the time the world's tallest building. A tremendous blaze breaks out, engulfing 3 floors. One of the engines is propelled through the building, out the other side, and crashes through the roof of a sculptor's studio across the street, setting that building on fire as well. Debris falls to the street below, where onlookers look up in amazement and horror at the tragedy unfolding 900 feet above them. 80 stories up, elevator operator Betty Lou Oliver suffers severe burns when she's blown from her position by the elevator by the massive explosion. When rescuers finally make it up to the 80th floor, they tend to her and then put her on a working elevator to send her down to a waiting ambulance. But the elevator they think is working is damaged, and as soon as the doors close, a cable breaks, and the elevator with Betty Lou inside plummets 75 stories down the shaft. When rescuers dig through the rubble, by some miracle, they find Betty Lou alive, stuck in a corner of the elevator, surrounded by twisted metal, steel, and bricks. Not only does Betty Lou Oliver survive, she earns herself a place in the Guinness Book of World Records for the longest survived elevator fall. Colonel Smith and 2 other crewmen on the plane are killed. 11 people working in the Catholic War Relief Office on the 79th floor also lose their lives, and 26 people are injured when a B-25 crashes into the Empire State Building on this day in 1945. The Catholic War Relief staffers who are not killed instantly pile into a room and close the door to block out the smoke. Among them is a secretary named Therese Willig. She assumes she won't make it out alive, so she throws her rings out the window, her high school ring, and a promise ring from her boyfriend. But Willig and the remaining staffers are rescued, and 2 days later, her rings are found in the debris on 34th Street and returned to her. There are 156 days left in the year. On This Day is produced by me, Dave Schultz. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks for keeping in touch on Twitter and Facebook. Thanks for sharing the show. Born on this day in 1866, children's book author Beatrix Potter. Potter and her younger brother have lots of pets when they're young, and they spend hours drawing pictures of them. To make money, they design Christmas cards. One of her Christmas card drawings of Benjamin Bunny is bought for illustrations of a book of verses. Years later, she entertains her son with a tale of 4 rabbits, which a few years after that, she combines with her bunny illustrations, publishing in 1902 The Tale of Peter Rabbit, a classic. And Beatrix Potter, born on this day in 1866, also is a prize-winning breeder of Herdwick sheep. So if you're still listening, lippity lippity. Talk to you tomorrow.